To me, the pinnacle of animation used to be One Punch Man. The first season of this glorious show had what I can only describe as the perfect adaptation. Not only did it have some of the most thrilling OSTs ever composed for an anime, but it also had god tier animation, not just in one scene or episode, but in the entire show. One Punch Man is what many used to regard as the greatest animated series to be produced. And I too shared this opinion until I watched Redline. To put the quality of this film into context, let me illustrate a tier list about animation in anime. Here at the S tier, we can see the best adaptations in regards to animation, in my opinion at least. This includes Dragon Ball Super Broly, Demon Slayer, and of course One Punch Man Season 1. Well, Redline isn't just slightly better than any of these, it's a whole tier better, and it has its own separate tier as the god of animation, befitting of the god tier. The craziest sin of all is that this insane level of animation is present through the entire runtime of the film, consisting of 103 minutes. Even Demon Slayer is not this consistent. But what type of story would actually need this animation? Let's find out. Redline is about the biggest and most deadly racing tournament in the universe. Only held once every 5 years, everyone wants to stake their claim to fame, including JP, a reckless daredevil driver oblivious to speed limits with his ultra customized car. All the while, organized crime and militaristic governments want to leverage the race to their own ends. Amongst the other elite rivals in the tournament, JP falls for the alluring Shonoshi, the other human in the tournament. But will she prove his undoing, or can a high-speed romance survive a mass destruction race? This is the concept of the movie Redline. In more simple terms, it is basically a Mario Kart film, but in an anime, with aliens from all across the universe. All the while, the one of two human racers in the race tries to hook up with the only other human. Yes, I know, exciting, right? The main flair of this movie is the livelihood of the environments explored. This isn't just another Rainbow Road in Mario Kart. The entire track, down to its minute details, are all full of detail and personality, making for a track that only further extrapolates the craziness being displayed. They quite literally race through air, land and water, just like in Mario Kart. Pair this up with the abilities built into the cars, and this makes it an anime like no other. The movie literally starts with dog aliens vaping. If that doesn't scream to you how unique this film is, to be honest, I don't know what will. And then, when you think the movie has reached its limits in terms of creativity and action at the start, it gets crazier. 30 minutes later into the film, you would again assume that this is the craziest it gets, right? Well, guess what? It gets crazier. An hour in, the entire universe is now involved. Surely it couldn't get crazier than this, but it gets crazier. An hour and 40 minutes later, there is an enormous illegal biological weapon constructed by the inhabitants of the planet to take over the universe, and it is unleashed into the race, so one of the main robot officials, merged with an AI that was crafted by them, becomes the tech titan to fight the biological weapon. All the while, hundreds of thousands of troops chase the racers down, whilst they all try to sabotage each other at inhuman speeds all through the earth, air and water, and a whole fucking nuke is released to kill them all. But it gets crazier. So how could anyone manage to animate all this into a movie? And my answer to this question is, I have no fucking clue. But that's where the craziest animation studio comes in, a studio that used to be so prevalent in the anime industry, otherwise known as Madhouse, the same studio that took on all these series, but more prevalently, the studio that is responsible for One Punch Man Season 1. And the crazy man who is responsible for the story is none other than Katsuhito Ishii, who has worked on, well, not many other works that are well known, aside from the Lupin films. But most shocking of all is the director of the film, who was able to turn Katsuhito's story into a reality in his fucking debut. This guy is his debut film, his debut in anime, and this is what he made as a director. It is a film that quite literally just focuses on racing and the world it is set in, What we learn of the show is through our first person watching experience. Regardless, it is extremely enjoyable and one of the best anime films I have ever seen, and by far the best animated piece of media ever, earning it a solid 8 out of 10 in my books. Redline is an incredible historic animation-based project which took over 7 years of production and utilised over 100,000 hand-drawn frames, which is why the animation is so lively, detailed and fluid. This however comes at a massive cost naturally. The film was produced in 2009 and back then, a project of this magnitude and scale would have been unheard of, mainly due to the fact that this was a standalone film with little to no story. In a way it's similar to Akira, as it was the first of its time to have such great animation in an anime. So let's look at Madhouse. In 2009, Madhouse was already a studio that had built up a respectable name. They were most well known for making Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Trigun, Hellsing Ultimate, The GOAT, Hajime no Ippo, go watch my last video, Monster, and most noticeably, Death Note. However, even then, Redline was so demanding of them, they were forced to delay its release date. And when it did come out, it was said to have been unsuccessful at the box office. So why may this have happened? Well, Redline segregated kids out with its more adult-based humour and nudity. They literally just show a naked girl in the film. So obviously kids were taken out of the equation when watching this film. However, couple the fact that it was not accessible to a younger audience with the fact that it's an anime original movie, meaning it had no following to support its release, and hence you can begin to understand why it did not perform very well at the box office in Japan. And those who did see the film praised it and spread it to others, which led it to become somewhat of a hidden gem, I would say, which encouraged people all over the world to buy it, its home release, and see why some people praised it so highly. However, the money it did make from this home release is unknown to me. In the end, the movie ended up making $8.2 million at the box office. So how much of a loss would that have been? Well, although the budget for the film is not publicly available, I will estimate a rough budget that went into it. The budget for Dragon Ball Super Broly was around $8.5 million, and Akira with today's values of yen would be around $6 million based on inflation. And so we could assume that the budget for this film lays around those figures based on the quality of the film and the time it took to make it, as I would assume that they wouldn't have been able to make it for much less. Because look at the quality of this film, it destroys both of those films, at least in my opinion. Based on this, it is true that the film would have made a profit at the box office. However, we're making a film with this many resources, including the animators, compositors, licensing, amongst other costs. The profit that is hoped to be made should be a multiple of times that of the budget put into this film, or at the very least, one would hope that a film this revolutionary would get their name across all over the world. However, the movie did neither of these things. To this day, Redline is what I would call an underground movie, and the money it made was probably not worth the cost and time involved in it. So whilst yes, Madhouse would not have gone bankrupt necessarily, it most likely sure did hurt them at the time. But to conclude, Redline is not just an ordinary film, it is a groundbreaking phenomenon of animation, and although it was not as successful as it should have been, let's enjoy and be grateful that it's even here and it happened, because I have never been so impressed with how good a show looked and moved in my life. And until Ufotable will spend double the budget they did for the Rengoku film, I don't think we will see something topping Redline in a very, very long time. Regardless, it's been your boy DuxF445, and I will see you guys with a new video next week. Goodbye.
Yeah.